Dave, how are you doing? I think you might be muted, Dave. I think it mutes folks when they hop on.
Forrest, I think I forgot to tell you when I spoke to you a few minutes ago that it's snowing. First snow here,
Wow.
southeastern Ohio. I don't know if people want to weigh in if they've got snow in their area, but we've got.
Wow.
Knowing
First
it
snow?
out.
Awesome. Dave. Brewster, how are you feeling?
Well, literally, I just left the Cincinnati Eye Institute, so I got my other cataract done. So now I'm not sure I can see any better yet, but on my way home.
He also has anesthesia still in his body for another couple hours.
Yeah.
So he really should not be talking.
I won't talk.
No, we might get the real truth out of him now.
He really should not be on the call, but at least he should be talking.
All right.
Oh my goodness. I
We're
see,
glad you're here anyway.
Keith, I see you've hopped on from Louisville. How are you doing, my friend? Lester, I see you're in from Higginsport. Higginsport's represented. Got a good crowd here.
Back from me, it's snowing hard in Louisville. I'm watching it out the window as I speak.
Oh, beautiful.
Yeah, but
First,
everything is going well here.
good deal. Good deal. Well, it is about 2:58 right now. We got just about two or three more minutes before we start. I'll go ahead and I will paste the agenda in the chat real quick. Let's see. Susan, how are you? How are things with KWA? Got Carolina from University of Kentucky. Got 10 more people hopping on. It looks like now is the moment.
Hey, Forrest.
Yes. How are you doing, Lori?
I'm well, thank you. How are you?
I'm doing just fine.
And I wanted to apologize for missing you. You know, our offices are located in the pagoda along the riverfront here in Evansville. And because we're in the basement, something happens with Verizon when our voicemails don't refresh in a timely manner.
Ah,
And oftentimes we forget to shut our phones off to restart them. So we did receive that, and I'm sorry that I missed you while you were here in
it
Evansville,
is
or at least around this region.
all good. I'm sure I'll be back down that way sometime soon.
Okay,
Yeah.
great.
Good deal, good deal. That is funny though. Thank you for letting me know. Good deal. I see we got Gary Masterson from West Point. How are things treating you at Fort Duffield? So he's hopped on. See Linda's here from Higginsport. Larry Cruz. So if you could go ahead now that we've reached our official starting time, if you could post your name and organizational affiliation in the chat, that would be great. It's got a few more folks hopping on. Got see Beth, you're here from the Mill Creek Alliance. How are you doing?
I'm great. How are you guys?
Doing just fine. Doing just fine. Awesome. I think we'll give it just about 30 more seconds, then we will dive on into this agenda. – Beautiful. All right. Well, thank you all so much for hopping on. Let's go ahead and get started. So for our agenda today, and I'll introduce myself real quickly if any of you don't know me. I am Forrest Clevenger. I'm the executive director of the Ohio River Way. I don't believe that's been the case since the last coalition meeting, so it is a pleasure to see you all in this capacity. Today, we got a packed agenda per usual. We're going to start with some updates from our organization, a few of the different projects we've been working on, including some applications we've submitted lately. From there, we are going to go into some committee updates. And then it should be on. We'll have John, a paddler that just completed all 981 miles of the Ohio River, speak. I was on the phone with him yesterday, and he told me he'd be on today. I hope he is, because his story's so cool. He'd never done more than one night overnight paddling, and then did all 981 miles. So we'll have him after the committee updates. And then some notes looking forward to the coming year, a few announcements, and also a brief discussion of what our coalition meetings can look like in 2025. We're thinking about shaking things up just a little bit. All right, perfect. Sound good? And can everyone hear me okay? Great.
Yep.
And as more folks just go ahead and hop on, please feel free to add your name and organizational affiliation in the chat there. All right. So to kick things off, our first update from the Ohio Riverway is our National Water Trail application is submitted. We've been talking about this for a couple years now, and we are very proud to have this application submitted. We submitted it on November 1st to the National Park Service. It is for the stretch of the river from Ashland and Ironton all the way down to West Point. And in this process, we can't thank you all enough for your support. In total, we got 70 letters of support, ranging from community activists to tourism bureaus to Governor Bashir. So we can't thank you enough for your support in that process. Also, thank you for everyone that has helped put up signs. We put up signs at 76 access points in preparation for this new signage, and we can't thank you enough for your support there. I'll add one more thing that we published as we were preparing. So one of the requirements of the National Water Trail application, and really just to be an effective water trail, is to have guiding materials. And we've had guiding materials for a long time, but we refreshed some of how we present things on our website and added some new resources. So if you go to our website now, you'll see a devoted tab related to water trail. The interactive map is the map that we've had for a long time, made in partnership with OKI. Powerful resource. It's interactive. You can drag and drop. There's tons of different layers. We've updated our safety information. We've also now linked to Terrain 360. This is a tool made by our friends with the Lewis and Clark Foundation. It's kind of like Google Street View. So I'll open that up real quickly. It can take you to any stretch on the river. And if you click on it, it will look like you're on the water, just like Google Street View. So if you are a paddler trying to figure out if an access point is accessible to you, you can go in here and mess around. And again, this is not a resource that we have made. It's just one that we're proud to share. I will go ahead and share one now that we have made. So we have an updated paddling guide, and this is to complement that digital guide we have. This is broken into 13 segments, and it was made in partnership with the National Park Service's Rivers, Trails, and Conservation Assistance Program. John Olivier from our team has talked about this and was integral in helping make this happen. These are PDFs that paddlers can print off. They're great for folks planning day trips. They're great for folks that want to do longer paddles as well. I'll show you just one as an example, but there are 13 in total here. So here's the first stretch from Ashland to Portsmouth. Starts with a map. Here, this varies a little bit from resources a boater might have because it has an emphasis on campsites right along the river. Also identifies how you can go through the locks and dams if you are a paddler bold enough to do that. And if you keep scrolling, the back page includes some information that's the same on all of these segment guides, like the safety essentials, the About the Ohio Riverway. What's different is each one has some local suggestions that we helped put together with a team of paddlers we consulted in this process, as well as the quick little narrative and some key contacts. We expect these to grow and to continue to be edited, but we are very proud to have them up on our website. And I'd encourage you to take a look at your stretch of the river and to see how that's represented there. So I'll go ahead and stop sharing my screen, but we're very excited to have that application in. We don't know what'll happen, but regardless of what happens with the designation and the result of that application, we want to keep striving to be the best water trail we can be for paddlers, whether they're through paddlers or day trip paddlers. Perfect. Moving on along. David, are you on? Saw that Fifewicks had hopped on. I'll see if he's
signed in.
Yep, I am here. Sorry, I couldn't find the unmute button.
You are all good, David. So in this next section, we're going to talk about some legislative updates. David, can you update us on the news with Cora?
Well, sure. So Governor Beshear last spring signed it after the legislation approved the legislation. And this past week at the Kentucky Counties Conference in Louisville, they had their first meeting. All 25 counties were represented, and Judge McNeil from Mason County was elected chair, and Judge Moore from Boone County is vice chair, and Deborah Belitsky and is secretary treasurer, and they approved a new charter, and they're going to become a 501c3, but also affiliated with the Department of Local Government. Their next meeting is not till March, but they're in discussions now with a variety of initiatives that one of them that's fascinating to me is potentially working with the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers to think through an updated recreation gap analysis. I'd like to call on Mayor Searcy here from West Point. He is the designated liaison. How this thing works is that there are 6 counties initially on the board, as well as Fish and Wildlife, tourism, and local government. But the 25 or the 19 other counties will rotate on, and each one has a liaison that has been pre-identified. And Mayor, do you have anything else you'd like to say about the potential of Cora?
I was really impressed with the group of people that were there, the number of, for lack of a better term, high-powered legislators. It looks like that thing really got some legs and is going to move forward.
Thank you, Mayor. And then the day after that, I went to the state legislature to the interim committee on tourism and economic development and made a presentation to 35 legislators and senators, and it went very positively. It was really an Ohio River Day. The first session was about river routes that our friend Rick Gariway is really pushing, and that's the celebration of the 250th anniversary of the Constitution. And then the second presentation was on the value of rivers really for the Bourbon Trail. And so it was the Kentucky Bourbon Trail, and folks were there, and they just really emphasized the value of the rivers. And then there was a discussion on Cora, and they're very excited about the the National Park Service application. And so if anybody wants to have further discussion about working with any of the 25 county judges and or their liaisons, it would be talk with them. We can get you all their names and everything else. One final piece is we worked very closely with Heather French Henry, who really facilitated getting all 25 counties on board. And one of her big initiatives is not only a collaborative grassroots approach for this thing, but also sort of working with the veterans associations up and down the river and celebrating the river as it is a military river in many ways, controlled by the Army Corps of Engineers. So I'm here if anybody else has any other comments, but it's ongoing and stay attention. The Department of Local Government has created a web page for Cora that has all of the minutes and the background information on the folks. So check it out. And that was all written up and for a short little article for the next Ohio Riverway newsletter.
Beautiful. Well, thank you so much, David. And as a refresher, CORA stands for the Kentucky Ohio River Regional Recreation Authority. And it really has come together incredibly quickly. So between David having the idea for CORA, modeled after the Mountain Recreation Authority, and it getting signed into law by the governor was about 2 months. And then all 25 counties along the river in Kentucky passed resolutions to join in less than 3 months. So we're hopeful that that momentum will continue. Similarly, Francis Kern-Manone with our team has some updates from Ohio about a similar legislative initiative.
Yeah, so thanks everybody. And not to be outdone by Kentucky, Ohio is on its way to do something similar. And I see that Eric Thompson and Bill with Forba are here. So gentlemen, if I leave something out, feel free to jump in. They are the instigators of this and we are supporters. There's a legislation that's proposed in the state of Ohio that's sponsored by both the House and the Senate at the moment. And last week there was some action on it with some testimonies that were going on in a Senate hearing. The legislation is to propose an Ohio River Commission, and because Ohio is one of the few states that has the benefit of having two coasts, Indiana has two coasts too. We are modeling, for the most part, we're modeling our legislation after what is already existing in the state of Ohio, which is the Great Lakes Commission, which also has a Great Lakes Fund. And so we are attempting to align interests along the Ohio River of all different kinds, based in commerce, but also has some tourism aspects. There's a call out in the proposed legislation to save seats for 11-member commission appointed by appointed by various elected folks. This Ohio River Commission would be seated in the Ohio Department of Development. That's the suggestion. And currently it's sponsored by Senator Wilkins on the Senate side. I don't know who the House sponsors are. That's the update from me on ORCA. Bill or Eric, do you have anything further to add on ORCA in Ohio River Commission legislation?
No, Francis, you've covered where we are today. So that, like I said, it was actually a hearing at the Senate Committee for Agriculture and Natural Resources last Tuesday, which I know that Francis and Brewster and others have submitted favorable testimony. I'm not sure what's going to happen with that. We're in a lame duck session in Ohio, so if it's going to pass, it's going to be in this lame duck session. So that certainly remains to be seen. But if not, we'll start up in earnest in the following session next year.
Yep, it's exciting.
Well, thank you so much, Eric. We are excited to have these dual legislative efforts in both states. It's not every week that the Ohio River Way is asked to testify before two state legislatures. So it's a busy week last week. I'm going to throw it back to Francis here. We're going to shift gears into discussing some funding that the Ohio River Way has pursued. And also, Francis, after you give an update on this community change grant, Chris Lawrence, I know you're not on the agenda, but if you have any updates from ORBA or the restoration efforts, feel free to chip them in once Francis wraps up. All right.
So in partnership with U of L's Environment Institute, the Ohio River Way is submitting tomorrow. It's due tomorrow, but it's completed and we're just waiting to press the button on it. An EPA community change grant. This is an offering out of the IRA that has been out in the current administration. There was $2 billion available nationwide. We're going after track 2. It's $40 million nationwide. I'm mentioning this because many of your communities may already be a partner to one of these applications. We created a statutory partnership between the Environment Institute and Ohio River Way, and it's our intention, should we get funding, to include many of our other partners, but the named applicants in the named partners in the application as the actual receiving bodies would be ourselves and Envirom being the lead applicant. Our application is just shy of $3 million, which is the max you could go after in track 2. What Envirom would do is expand some of their work that they piloted in the Louisville region, which is a deeper understanding of environmental impact by way of what they call an environmental vulnerability index, by taking not just what the EPA and other federal agencies have created in their CGEST data source, but also diving even further deeper into impacts based on further into census tracts, and creating recommendations on different things you could do to improve health outcomes for EVI communities that have high index reports. So that's what Environ would do. We would help underpin some of the ongoing and years, almost decades worth of community engagement that has been going on. So a lot of the funding that we have applied for would be to support, underpin, fund the ongoing community engagement that is surrounding the Ohio River Restoration Initiatives. So fingers crossed, we'll see how it goes. But we like to swing for the fences on big ones, and we'll see how we can be competitive nationwide.
Perfect. Thank you, Francis. And in addition to Environment, this is part of a close partnership with the Ohio River Basin Alliance as well. And ORB is really helping leading these restoration efforts, and we're trying to get funding to help boost their capacity as well. So Chris, would love to hear any updates you'll have.
Sure, thanks for the opportunity. I'm Chris Lawrence with Thomas More University, but also the chair of the Ohio River Basin Alliance. For those less familiar, it's a nonprofit looking at the basin as a whole and working on a restoration and protection plan, which is in its final stages of completion. A couple things to note: we have 2 caucus co-chairs in DC, Morgan McGarvey from Louisville, Aaron Houchin from Indiana, and they will be introducing legislation very soon for a restoration plan in the basin. And we would love feedback on that. Secondly, we're going to put out the plan, the restoration and protection plan, which parallels the legislation, in February, and we'd like to have public comments on the plan. So keep an eye out for draft legislation, keep an eye out for the restoration protection plan. Please weigh in on both. Thirdly, we will have our 3rd Ohio River Basin Hill Day in Washington, D.C. in May or June. And part of that EPA grant that Forrest and Francis had mentioned provides funding for you all, our partners, to attend that Hill Day. So keep an eye out for that. We'd love to have a strong contingent in D.C. pushing our issues. And then lastly, in the fall, we'll hold our annual summit, likely in Louisville. And we're talking with Forrest, Francis, and others about how we can partner more closely with ORW. So we're excited about that opportunity. Thanks.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Chris. You all are doing amazing work. If we're swinging for the fences, I think you all are swinging for the moon. So thank you for doing that. Moving on along, updates from me. We, as you know, have a $1.7 million community project funding request, really an earmark request, through Representative Brad Winstrup's office. We've been in touch with many of you about this. It would build 17 ADA accessible canoe and kayak launches in communities throughout Ohio's southern coast with the river. after speaking with Brad Winstrup's office, they're still very hopeful that this funding will come through, even if it's in the new Congress. I can't give you any more certainty than that as to whether or not it will be funded, but we did make it into the House Transportation HUD budget. And what Congress does is what Congress does at this point. So you will know as soon as we get any sort of answer on action from Congress. Perfect. All right, we've reached the next section of our agenda, committee updates. And I might flip the order of this around a little bit. Christy Knoll, would you be able to pop on with some updates from the Conservation Committee? Mark, as well, if you're here, and would love to hear about the news as well with your big project and funding you've just received.
Perfect. I'm Christy Knoll with the Boone Conservancy. I'm the co-chair of the Conservation Committee, and Mark Jacobs with Conservation District is our other chair. We had a committee meeting at the summit, the Ohio Riverway Summit, which is, nice to have one annual meeting in person. And we discussed a lot. We talked about the Ohio River Restoration Plan and CORA. It was a good introduction to really kind of dig into the meat of CORA. I feel like our meeting was a little Kentucky heavy, so I apologize to people that were there that were not from Kentucky. And I think a lot of that was just because we had a lot of Kentucky people in the room. We updated on updating on our mapping efforts. So our mapping group, OKI and Jack Phillips are leads on that, Margaret. And they have gotten the information from Human Nature that was, I don't know how many years ago, the Ohio Riverway contracted with them for some mapping. So they are kind of delving into that and to match it all up. And then hopefully we'll have, as much of a map as we are going to have from our committee for now, but we're working on that. Member recruitment, we talked about reaching out to other groups I think the trick is to try to get people up and down the river on both sides of the river. It's, as you guys know, it's a difficult process. So we talked about reaching out to the land trust communities in Indiana and Ohio. We have obviously good representation right now, but to get our message there and see if there's any smaller land trusts we don't know about that might want to join into our group. Let's see what else. Oh, and then we talked about developing some conservation education materials that we would have on hand for everyone on the Conservation Committee and Ohio Riverway to hand out. And it was great because Division of Water, several people had said they have, don't recreate the wheel, we have stuff. So we will be putting that together. I think it's nice to be able to disseminate some conservation information to people. I feel like there's a lot of confusion out there with conservation, what it really is. So if we had kind of a message that is cohesive that we can all share. And lastly, we talked about, Mark, unless I'm missing anything, our project in Boone County, the Boone County, Ohio River Initiative, which we also received the National Park Service Rivers Trails Conservation Grant. That is wrapping up on our end. So Russ Clark from MPS has given us a draft of his final report. And our big kind of Northern Kentucky group we'll review that and give him comments. So we'll have an end product from Russ that we can kind of use as all these other projects get going, like CORA. Nice to have that plan in hand to help us with projects. Mark, other things on committee-wise?
I think, also your project, that's kind of a big one. So.
I will. I just didn't know if there's something else you wanted to say before I did that.
No, I think you got it all pretty much covered.
Okay. Yeah. So exciting news on our end. We've been working, I think most of you have heard me talk about this 400 acres that we're trying to purchase on the river in Boone County. And Tuesday night, we were awarded another $346,000 from the county as a matching grant for our North American Wetlands Conservation Act money. So that puts our total to a little over $1.8 million with a $2 million land purchase price. So we are on the home stretch, which is really exciting. And we are planning on closing on that property in the third week in January. So it's beautiful. It's about almost a mile and a half, a beachy riverfront. It'll be perfect for a nice stop on the National Water Trail.
Well, congratulations. That's huge news. And I know that just happened as well.
Yeah. Thanks.
Awesome. For the tourism committee, who do we have on? Jess is on. I believe I saw Mary. while you all are coming out, Noel, hello. So, Noel, our main update there is on the guide, right? Which is essentially saying we have an upcoming meeting.
Yeah. So we are getting ready to, or we have a preliminary meeting scheduled for December 16th at 11 o'clock to engage our tourism committee, those that want to be involved in getting sort of providing an update as to where we're at with the travel guide for the Ohio Riverway, what's going to be coming, and they're probably going to see some things, or your communities will see some things on advertising and some other things in the next, prior to the 16th. But we want to clear up any confusion or concern. So this is an open meeting to just essentially learn what's going on with the guide for 2025, some timeline updates, things like that. Again, I'll be sending this out to the tourism committee, but if you want to attend and receive the team's invite, just reach out to myself or to Forrest, and then he can forward it to you. If I don't have everybody's, I'm not going to send it to the whole coalition. So if you want to receive it or you think you need to be on it, please let Forrest or I know, or Jessica, and we'll make sure that you receive the forwarded invite to that meeting. But it's, again, just an update. It's not an input meeting. It is just an opportunity for you to receive information and ask questions.
Right. Okay. Thank you so much, Noel. And I understand there are probably some questions about the guide, and we are taking some time to set some plans in the last few months, and we are excited to answer those questions and move forward. Next, I had updates here from Paul Tincati, chair of our history committee, aka Orville. Paul is having some technical difficulties, but he does have a very exciting update. Paul is soliciting chapters for inclusion in a multi-volume anthology titled Innovation Nation, the Ohio River Gateway Region in the Making of America. So the edited volume of personal stories and scholarly analysis will shed light on the entire 14-state Ohio River Basin, in underscoring the history of the region, the politics, and all sorts of different things. It's an anthology. So if you think you have a compelling chapter to add to this story, or if you know anyone that might be, Paul is taking abstract submissions until December 16th. So we have just shy of a month there. We will include another update on this, but I will also go ahead and pop this in chat as well if you would like to go ahead and take a note. This includes Paul's email. And I know Paul would be glad to talk about this as well. He's very, very kind. Beautiful. All right. We've gotten through our updates from the Ohio Riverway as well as our committee updates. And it does look like we have some extra time for our spotlight story today. John, if I see you've already come off mute. So I just want to introduce John real quick. I said this at the top, I'll say it again. John just completed a through paddle of all 981 miles of the Ohio River with his friend also named John. The John we have on today had only stayed overnight one night before on a paddling trip, and has some very, very interesting perspectives on what went well along the way, how communities could maybe better serve paddlers as well, and I'm sure some good stories as well. So please take your time.
Okay. Thanks, Forrest. First, I want to really applaud all of your efforts. We had no idea any of this was going on behind the scenes. And if these things that you're discussing today were in place today, it would have made our trip a whole lot easier. We spent every day looking for a friendly place to pull off the river and spend the night. And sometimes we found them and sometimes we didn't. So if there was a way of organizing river-friendly towns or sites, it would be so much better for future paddlers. I appreciate what you're doing.
John, can you share how you came to be a through paddler, how you chose to do this?
Well, yeah, John, my buddy John, he's an adventure guy, and he's written books about climbing mountains and all kinds, long hikes, and he's done the Pacific Crest Trail. He's done all this crazy stuff, and I called him one time, and he was in Suriname, which I had to look up where that was because he was climbing a mountain. So he has this adventure spirit, and he last year he called me up and said, "Hey, you want to bike across Mongolia?" I'm like, sure. So we did that last year, and so this year he calls me, "Hey, you want to paddle the Ohio River?" I'm like, sure. So I'm just basically riding his coattails, but it was tremendous fun, and he's a phenomenal person to travel with. But I got into this because of him.
Beautiful. How many days was it?
47.
47. And
we took a couple days off for weather. We caught the tail end of Hurricane Helene. So that was a 0 day, and then there were some days where the winds were pretty bad, and there's a lot of chop, so we had some low mileage days. But we did mostly about 22, 23 miles a day.
Mm-hmm.
It was easily doable over like an 8-hour day or so.
Yeah. And what were in the communities where you felt most welcome, or maybe had the best time? What connected those communities? What did it for you?
Well, the people were willing to help us out. We had a map that showed some boat ramps, but that was about it. So we would pull off in the evening and just hope that we could find a place to stay. And we'd meet a few people, and they were like, "Sure, just put your tents over there, no problem." And do you need a ride to the grocery store? There's a restaurant 2 blocks away that's really good. Things like that. And then there were other times where thought we were in the middle of nowhere, totally isolated. Nobody would bother us, and then we had law enforcement try to run us off because we're not supposed to camp. So if we had a guide that told us friendly places, that would have been so much easier.
Yeah. So I mean, and that's one thing I've been thinking about as we talk more with crazy through paddlers like you, John, is what resources truly are the most helpful. I mean, is that just how do we build the community of river angels we see in places like the Mississippi River, where there's a true network of people that pay attention to who's paddling through and give them a plot of dirt to sleep on, maybe a warm meal, and at least some guidance on where they can find some friendly faces.
Well, I don't know how you market something like this, but if there's a single website or whatever that people who are interested in paddling the river could access and had connections with all your groups, and this is what we can offer. I mean, that map you showed up front was tremendous. That would have been a big help. We only found one resource. There's the Ohio River Guidebook, which we talked about yesterday. That was the one and only resource that was available to us that we could find. Okay. So additional resources like what you were proposing, if that's on, because we found this online. So if your things were online and people could find them.
Well, you all finished. We published that by November 1st, and I believe you all finished like November 2nd, right?
We did, yes.
Beautiful. Okay. Well, thank you for letting me pick your brain. Sure. Can I open this up to the whole room for some questions? Is that okay, John?
Sure.
Beautiful. I think I see Jim's hand up.
Yes. John just made a great testament to something that we, from Lewis and Clark Trust, we preach continually. We all get wrapped up in our daily and weekly, monthly projects, but greater dissemination of information in a national and international community is very helpful. We need to keep that in the back of our mind, how we disseminate what we're trying to do instead of just thinking about our committees or our small world that we live in. The Ohio River is a major thoroughfare, major watershed, and literally in the world. So, John, thanks for your testimony today. I appreciate what you're preaching. You said it very well. Thank you.
Well, thanks. I appreciate what you're doing.
Beautiful. I see, David, you have your hand up.
Yeah, I was just curious on that because the digital guide has been out for a couple of years now, and
did
that not show up in any of your searches online? Because it's out there, and would have, at least for the middle portion of your paddle, would have been a tremendous resource.
Yeah. I don't know. I couldn't find it, and I guess John couldn't find it either. I don't know.
Okay. Well, we should take a dive into that to make sure that it's something that is present in Google searches. We can dive into that. I see Simon Foster, the Ohio River Ways treasurer, put a question in the chat. John, he's interested to know, did you encounter other paddlers? What was the volume of river traffic like, and what kind of vessels would you see?
Loads of barges, mostly coal barges. That was not a problem because we kept far out of their way, and they don't produce much wake, which is nice. We really didn't see any other paddlers. There was a couple of people in kayaks just goofing around, but they weren't like on a trip. They were just looks like they're just paddling around, just having fun. But that was maybe once or twice. But otherwise, no real paddlers.
Beautiful. Beautiful. And I see Joe Motz is on the call as well. I don't know if you have any experiences, anything you would like to add to this discussion of paddling experiences as well.
Hey, Forrest. Yeah,
hello.
And good to see you all here, John. That's great. I'm sorry I checked in late, so I just caught the last of John's comments. But I too love the journey on the Ohio. I've done now about 80% of it. I started from Cincinnati, went down to the Mississippi, and then went on around on a loop. I'm on a 3,000-mile quest, and then I came back to the Ohio at Marietta, coming from Muskingum, and went up to the confluence, and then back down to Portsmouth, and we'll finish the last leg up here in the spring. But love the river. The lock masters were overall really great to work with. It's amazing their patience to work with us paddling through. The one thing, John, that while I love the beauty and macro and the throwback that it takes you to, that kind of struck me as what could be done. And I know there's people on here with broader awareness about the blue barrels. To me, I was just saddened close up by the extent of the number of blue barrels, and I saw a lot of their origination on docks that are put up, that break apart with floods. And then I played around a lot just thinking about, ways that I could start a cleanup program, but more, I think, long range thinking is how do we keep them from keep coming back down. And so it just felt like, boy, I'd like to do something about that. Why? Not really about additional regulation, or I was thinking about deposit program and things that, just deal with blue barrels. I had a shot that was pretty iconic. I took of a beautiful bald eagle, eating a fish sitting on top of a blue barrel. And it's like, I love to see that on a branch instead of a barrel. But overall, loved it. That and the invasive species give me concern long term. But
yeah. Well, I mean, we exist for through paddlers like you all, and it's inspiring to hear your all's stories. And John, I just love the spirit that you all brought to this expedition as well. How did you all put it yesterday? You told me that to become a through paddler, you just kind of got to decide that the first step is deciding that you can do it. Doesn't matter how crazy it is, that it's something you're gonna do.
Yeah. Well, I guess if you can paddle one day, you can paddle more than one day. You just have to have the mental attitude, I suppose, that you just have to understand you're going to do this day after day. And it can be a chore or it can be an enjoyable thing. It depends on where your mindset is. And the scenery is beautiful. And there were sections of the river that were just pristine and they were gorgeous. And we saw loads of bald eagles. And John, he spends a lot of time in Alaska working with native tribes. And the bald eagle acts as a guardian. And so we would see a bald eagle and then they would fly ahead to the next tree. And we took it as, they're being our guardians and looking out for us. And it was maybe hokey, but it's kind of a comfort thing. It was cool. But the wildlife was beautiful.
Well, it certainly sounds like a wonderful adventure, John. And, the Ohio Riverway with River City Paddle Sports does this year it's going to go from Ashland on down to Louisville, about 12 days, so not as long. But it's a huge difference. We're in big canoes, so it's a social adventure as well as a paddling adventure. And, you don't want to take away from the solitude of one or two people paddling like you did, or what Neil Moore does. It has a special feeling to it. But if people are interested, stay tuned to the Ohio Riverway Facebook page and the web page, and we'll have our announcements about our 13-day trip from Ashland on down to here, and hopefully maybe even go from here on a separate trip down to the Mississippi River. And so do the entire thing next year, but time will tell.
Yeah. Well, a 2-day or 3-day trip can be as much fun as anything else. So, if there's an organized trip like you're describing, that sounds great.
Perfect. All right. Well, thank you, John, for hopping on today and for sharing your incredible story. And yes, I see in the chat, Brandy, yes, the Ohio Riverway Challenge is starting in Ashland this year. We're very, very excited. We're looking at changing the dates for that. It might be in mid-May. We will keep you updated. Beautiful. We got about 15 more minutes. So shifting gears.
Forrest, can I make my report now? Because I have to go in 5 minutes.
Yeah, I was going right to you. So Rick, take it away. And if you'd like me to share your new website on screen, I can do that too.
Hi, everybody. We've been working on this national signature event to kick off America's birthday in 2026 in Cincinnati, called America's River Routes. And this week we announced the 9 participating river boats from 7 cities, stretching from New Orleans to St. Paul, Quad Cities, Pittsburgh, and all the cities in between. And I have 3 ways that Ohio Riverway can get involved. Number one, if you want to check out the scope of this thing, go to americasriverroutes.com. We're really trying to position this as a celebration of America inland waterways. Even though we're hosting it in Cincinnati, we're going to be celebrating the music, the cuisine, and the culture of our rivers, and have this on, music on 7 stages on both sides of the river, which is a beautiful place for a musical festival. Bourbon tastings, beer tastings, cuisine tastings from the river cities. And one of the specific ways you can get involved is to charter a riverboat. How about if the summit is next year in Cincinnati on the 6th and 7th, and then there could be a cruise for all the members of the coalition on the river that day, because we have 4 different kinds of cruises each day for 5 days. That's one idea. The second idea is we're going to have a river exposition in a pavilion that will invite every city that's sending a riverboat. And we've already sent all the mayors a letter saying, hey, there's 3 ways you can get involved. Number one, you can race a boat against our local mayors, and we already announced the challenge at the press conference. But if you'd like to get your Convention and Visitors Bureau to set up a booth inside your pavilion, they can showcase the cultural tourism assets of Memphis or Nashville. And we're going to invite all the other towns along the rivers to do that. You don't have to be sending a riverboat. So there's lots of great Convention and Visitors Bureaus in our membership that might want to be a part of that pavilion. Another way is the Freedom Journey. We've been able to raise the money to do a web-based app that is in the throes of being completed here in the next 2 months. We've actually assembled all 110 sites on the Freedom Journey. It's amazing. Every organization had their own database. The Park Service, Claremont County. We actually photographed all those sites and did some drone footage in the fall, and have the Museum Center in Cincinnati codifying and checking the facts, so we can make sure this is not based upon folklore, but actual facts. And we're going to tell stories about that journey, not just go to 100 sites, but collect them in tours that you can download on your phone and enjoy with your self-guided tour or groups. And the website will have the capacity to expand. So at some point when Ohio Riverway has decided what kind of tourism assets you want to promote. So if I'm in Ripley, what coffee shop, what Airbnb do I want to maybe stay in if I'm there on the river? So we're working with Forrest and Brewster to have that opportunity at some time in the future to tie into the Freedom Journey app. And then let's see, lastly, we're working with Lands and Living Waters to see if we can get them to come for 4 days and work with Adventure Crew on some workshops for high school kids, but also a zero waste event that we're going to be pursuing during the event. So lots of ways to get involved. We'll be keeping close tabs with Forrest on specific activities, and we welcome your visit to Cincinnati October 8th to the 12th, 2025.
Beautiful. Thank you so much for that update, Rick. I know you got to get going, but we are incredibly excited to engage with you all more with that huge celebration. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay. Another update from one of our partners, Mary Allen. I'll let you take it away. New Richmond is going to be hosting a new festival. Well, not a new festival, just got awarded another festival.
Another festival.
Yeah. So go ahead.
We just want to announce, we found out that we're going to be hosting the Appalachian Regional Festival this year. It had previously been at Coney Island. And so what a wonderful opportunity for both New Richmond, but for ORW. And I just want to give a shout out to our village administrator, Catherine Bailey. She did a masterful job of negotiating that. There was a lot of competition. And I also want to say something that isn't on your agenda, but I think it's worthy. And Larry Pruse, if you're still in the call, you might want to jump in. In 2025, we're going to actually be able to start Liberty Landing. And then we're still working on the US 52 roundabout project that'll be hopefully starting in 2025. So there's a lot of great things happening in our community right now, but that Appalachian Regional Festival is going to be a big deal for us.
Beautiful. Beautiful. Well, thank you so much for that update, Mary. And if anyone else has any news from your communities, we would love to hear that in just a moment. Before that, though, I have a quick question for you all. Is we make our plans for 2025. The coming month, we're going to do our year in review for 2024. We are thinking about what the structure of the coalition meeting should be like in the next year. So in 2023, and previously, we did coalition meetings monthly. We switched to quarterly this year. It's recently been suggested that we go back to a monthly schedule with roughly a half hour of updates and then a half hour that is a guest speaker that we've invited every month. So shorter updates from our team, but just a way for us to stay in touch more often. And wanted to open up the floor for any thoughts from you all. If what pace you all think is most helpful for you, what you might like to see in the coming year. Well, if there are no thoughts, we'll discuss this internally a bit more, but I think we'll likely move to a monthly schedule. And Francis from our team is volunteered to help put together a list of speakers. So hopefully we'll get that scheduled out early on this year. Thank you, Mark. Yeah, I think monthly makes sense. Because quarterly we have a lot to get through. All right, we have 10 minutes left. We have done well on our time today. If anyone has any questions, glad to answer them. Also would love to have folks chime in with any news from your communities. I see Derek has put in the chat a message from Indiana Trails about their Bridges for All conference. You're welcome to unmute and talk about that if you'd like. It's going to be in Louisville.
This is Jim Bishop.
Hey,
Hey,
Jim.
hey, how you doing? We are putting together a conference next year. It's concerning accessible, safe bridges for pedestrians and bicyclists, and accessibility issues and, concerning pedestrian pathways for bicycles and pedestrians on these bridges. It's going to be a major conference. I think we're getting some great speakers lined up for this conference, and it's going to be quite an affair. So it's going to be in Louisville at the Waterfront Botanical Gardens, which is a magnificent setting. And there's also going to be a pre-conference socializer at Falls, Ohio State Park the evening before May 13th. It's going to be quite an event, and we certainly hope to see everybody out there. The Big Four Bridge is going to be featured at this conference for sure. And we'll be looking at bridges all across the country and accessibility issues concerning them and pedestrian access.
Beautiful. We're looking forward to it. I see Kendall has chimed in with some updates from Rising Sun. And Francis has posted in the chat some funding opportunities specific to Ohio related to voter education and some environmental education funds. Brian, if you would like an Ohio River Way of Life poster, we have plenty. Shoot me an email and we can get some mailed out to you. It might take a little bit of time though. We're glad to share those posters. Beautiful. Right. Rick, is there any news up in Ironton?
Yeah, there's been a lot going on, and I guess the question about the blue barrels, I'm kind of trying to figure what was meant by that, but we all have a responsibility to try to remove those from the riverbanks when we can. I've been in conversations with Brian Stortz from the Division of Water and becoming more involved with the watersheds. So the great news is H2 Ohio Rivers has awarded us a grant for a working barge with a crane on the front of it, which we will be putting in the water come spring. And we are working through some state programs where the labor will be paid for. And we plan on having this boat in the river 5, 6, 7 days a week all year. So depending upon water levels and weather and so forth, but we're very excited to get busy cleaning. Excited to be involved with Annette from Orsenko. Just a lot of really good things are happening. So we all have a little bit of a responsibility to provide a better quality product. And I'm going to continue to harp on this until the day I die. But, we need to all take responsibility for our own shores and make sure we put the best product we can out there for everybody to enjoy. Just trying to think what else kind of popped in. But yes, we're really excited to get this boat. And we're anxious to get it working. So we do plan on having it in Cincinnati for the Orsenko program in the spring. And I'd also like to reach out to Rick to have that boat there during the time of the festival and educating people more on that as well.
Beautiful. We are incredibly excited for you. That's huge news. And to my knowledge, that's you're the first community to have a boat like that, I believe. Longview High River.
Well, the lawyers hung it up for 3 months now, and this morning we actually finally got everything signed off. It was there's a level of expectations and accountability and tracking of how much material we're actually removing and what categories it falls under. So there's a fair amount of work assigned with this, and I'm lucky enough that our commissioners seen the value into it and are willing to subsidize the daily operations of it.
Beautiful. Beautiful. That is great news. We do have a couple new blog posts from the Ohio River Way since we have a quick moment. Jess, if you are on, you're welcome to chime in and talk about these real quick. I'm going to share the screen real quick.
Yeah, so National Take a Hike Day was on November 17th. So we created a blog post with some just fun fall hikes along the Ohio River. Yeah, included lots of great ones, but and also promoted this on social media. And then we also created another blog on cold weather paddling tips. We'll be promoting that on social media as well. But yeah, I collected some of the December events that you all just mentioned in the chat as well. And if ever you guys have other events, other cool things you want to promote, please just always feel free to reach me at jessica@ohioriverway.org because I would love to include those types of things in promotional materials, social media, blogs as well. So yes, just tell me all the things that are happening in your towns and communities.
Yes. Jess is doing absolutely incredible work. When you see the newsletter, Jess has written that. When you see the blog posts that are always getting added, she's done that. She's our point person for the guide and is managing the social media right now. So we cannot thank you enough for all you're doing.
Thanks.
Beautiful. All right. Well, I think that is it from us. We're 3 minutes early. I will stay on until the bitter end. If anyone would like to talk about anything, I'm here. Glad to answer any questions as well. I see we have both Higginsport and West Point on. How are you all doing?
West Point's doing very well. We just was going to chime in. We just did finish up our bank stabilization grant plan, and it is going to public hearing the first week of December. And then I'm going to need some help finding the $2 million worth of funding it's going to take to do the work. So that's going to be huge for our riverfront.
Okay. Good deal. When I did make it down to the boat ramp that's just been refurbished, and that looks good.
They've done a nice job, and we've got the parking lots repaved and the road back to it's now been repaved. So we're looking pretty good for spring. Is anybody we're looking to put in a kayak kiosk. Has anybody else done this? It's where you can actually check out a kayak from your phone. Do you know anybody else that's done that and how successful it's been?
Doesn't Shacks Yaks have a kayak kiosk? That's a lot. That's a mouthful. Shacks Yaks kayak kiosk. And they are the operators for in Cincinnati, but they're based in New Richmond.
And maybe
I think they're now in Maysville.
I can chime in here. I'm in the city of Newport, Kentucky, and we work with Chris Shack and Shack Yaks and just installed late September a kayak kiosk rental and a kayak canoe paddleboard storage system at the waterfront of the Ohio and Licking River.
So Jen, people can pay on their phone to rent a kayak for an hour or two, and they get a code. It opens the door. They get a kayak, a life jacket, and a paddle. And when they're done, they put it back in there. And again, it shows up as a charge on their phone. And so it's you guys in Newport are the first to do this. Augusta has had a similar prototype out there. Jan and Hunter arranged it, and it's been going well. But in terms of the metropolitan area, you're the first. But I know that other communities are very interested. So yeah, Mayor, we can follow up with you and provide information about how to get in touch with Chris Shack, who just finished a sort of a marketing brochure that we can circulate to every community. He just finished that over the weekend, and we pledged to help him get that information spread out. But wouldn't it be great if there were 10 communities that had the ability for the local residents and visitors to rent a kayak by the hour? That'd be so cool.
I've been working with somebody out west. I can't remember. I'm not trying to look for the name of the company, but it'd be nice to have an alternate source because it'd be nice to know that we're getting the best deal possible. Because they're looking at $20,000 to put this thing in. That's 4 kayaks.
So Jen, tell them the story about the deal with you guys.
Yeah, so the same thing. I moved to Newport about 7 years ago and immediately saw there was a need for a system like this on the waterfront. And I looked into the same kind of things. Other companies are based out of Pennsylvania and Michigan, and they were charging the city, anywhere from 20 to 30,000 to put these systems in, and then it would manage it from a distance. For us personally, it's nice because Shack Shacks is located in Alexandria, Kentucky, so it's very convenient. But they manage everything. They do the installation. Everything is online for the rentals and for the, if you just want to take out the kayak, you scan a QR code. You put in your credit card information, you sign a liability waiver, and then the lock unlocks and all the equipment is right there inside. Go out and paddle. When you're done, you return the equipment, you take a picture of it, and then close, and it locks up and you get the information of how much it was. So for the first hour, it is $15 for a rental, and then for each additional hour is $10 an hour. So very reasonable. And then Shack Shacks also provides the storage systems, and they're up to 12 feet long, and you can rent for just the season, or you can rent for a whole year, and provide your own lock. And it's a great system to just go to the waterfront and put your kayak in and go, or your paddleboard and go. I'd be happy to answer any other questions.
But Jen, the company Shack Shacks does not charge the community for the installation or operation of this deal. He just keeps all the money for the rentals, correct?
Yeah, so it's nice for cities like the city of Newport that doesn't have necessarily the funding for this kind of thing, that all of the liability and everything is managed by Shack Shacks. So we do not have to, the city of Newport doesn't have to hire someone to be there, on the premises, which is a huge, huge advantage. It's a great way to get this kind of thing started and see what the interest is in it. And I will say this was put in late in the season, so close to the end of September. But reports from Chris Shack of Shack Shack says that the rental's been doing great. The storage system, not as much, but I'm not surprised because it was towards the end of the paddling season more so. So I expect that'll pick up significantly in the spring.
Thank you. I just pulled up their website, so I'll get in touch with them and see. That would be much more beneficial to the city. We don't. I was trying to find an investor that would do this, and honestly, it didn't look like a bad financial deal. But if we can at least get a couple years without an investment to see if it works, that would be huge for us. And we're getting ready to reopen our RV park right next to the boat ramp, so there'll be quite a bit of activity there. We hope.
Beautiful. We love the kayak kiosk. I know when we went through the challenge in Augusta this previous year, every single kayak was out. And I've been told it's consistently fully used. Beautiful. What other updates do we have? Any other questions?
This was a update I put in the chat earlier, but hello everyone, Julie Donna with Hamilton County Environmental Services. We are working on a regional climate and sustainability plan for the entire region. So not just Cincinnati, but all 16 counties that are touching Cincinnati in any way. And we're especially looking for some feedback and engagement from rural communities, from local governments, and we have plenty of team members that are outside of Hamilton County, but I'm just trying to reach more folks in any way that we can and get some ideas for how we're going to create a sustainable region in our clean air, clean water, and clean energy future. So I put a link to our engagement platform in the chat, but you can also just email me. I'll put my email again, juliedonna@hamilton-co.org. So just really looking to have some engagement sessions. We'd come out to your group, your local community for workshops, or we also have that platform that is looking for, you can go directly in and give some feedback there.
Beautiful, beautiful. Thank you so much for sharing that. I believe Aaron Rourke had a question.
Yeah, hey Forrest. I have to approve designs for river accesses on the Little Miami. It's a state national scenic river. And sometimes I find that property managers have promised in their levy campaigns that all infrastructure going forward will be ADA accessible. And they haven't thought about the consequences, which sometimes have meant, for instance, that acres of trees have to be cleared from what is otherwise a very valuable conservation area in order to put the long and winding path down to the river. And they have to do cuts through the riverbank with retaining walls. I just bring that up because it's important to think about where the access is going to go before deciding whether it'll be ADA accessible instead of the reverse.
Mm-hmm. That is a great point, Aaron. Great point to keep in mind. All right. Let's see, what other questions do we have? I mean, on the ADA accessibility, Aaron, I think that is speaking to a tension in the world of outdoor adventure, right? Part of wilderness adventure and its appeal is that it is rugged, right? That it is wilderness. At the same time, we want the outdoors to be accessible to all. So how do we strike a balance that makes spaces that are inclusive and accessible to everyone while also leaving spaces that are rugged and wild, but may not be accessible?
Agreed. I would think that when we're applying for money to do river accesses, instead of saying all of them will be ADA accessible, we might want to say in all areas agreed upon by local advocates of disability and our conservation partners, we will attempt to make everything that we possibly can. We could say, for instance, we will go into it with the intent to make it ADA accessible and only back away from that in certain circumstances. And here's what I'm getting at. I know that wasn't very clear, but in a few cases, when I've had to review ADA accessible projects, I've asked the property manager, have you even talked to, say, Wounded Warriors or any other groups that you propose to serve to see if they want this? And so far, the answer has been no. See, I'm imagining that if you went to some of those groups and said, here's what we propose to do to this access, it's going to mean clearing 4 acres of woods in an otherwise pristine riparian corridor. And, we're trying to keep the riparian corridor intact, I think, on all rivers in general. Is it important that we go ahead and make this ADA accessible? I think some of those groups would say, no, by all means, don't do that. Don't improve an access in that nice patch of woods to the point where it's not a nice patch of woods anymore. Instead, move it to some other place, or we'll make do with what's there.
Yeah. No, that's a great point. It's a great point.
Hey, Forrest, I know we're sort of in the water cooler chat period of the meeting, correct? Okay, just to reinforce that.
To be clear, we have adjourned. Yes, about 10 minutes ago. So if you're still on, you're welcome to hop off. Though we are glad to stay in chat.
But I just wanted to follow up with Aaron's comment, and I'm sorry, I just had cataract surgery an hour ago, so I can barely see being here. But I think Danny Meyer, I thought I saw that he was on or sense that he was on. Danny is the executive director of a relatively new nonprofit based in Cincinnati called Bridge Adaptive, which works to get people with physical disabilities out into, especially kayaking. And so Danny's very interested in reaching out to the communities along the Ohio that are renovating, putting in new boat ramps, especially canoe and kayak access docks, to the extent they're ADA compliant, of course, and working with those communities to start thinking through ways that they can promote that new amenity to people with disabilities in their community. So I just wanted to flag that, and I promised Danny that I would connect him to the leaders of communities that are in the process, hopefully, of getting those ADA compliant docking systems, thanks to the work of ODNR, working with Congressman Wenstrup's office on the earmark request that you talked about earlier. It looks like it's going to go through, but Danny is very anxious to make sure his organization is available to the communities to help them think through how to program the use of that new facility in each of those towns. So enough of that, but thanks.
Beautiful. Any other questions or comments for us?
When is our next meeting?
Not scheduled as of yet. So going back to that, we'll likely switch over to monthly for the coming year and send out a schedule in the future. I imagine it'll still be, believe we were on the last Thursday of the month at 10 a.m. So I believe that's the schedule we'll be going to. Beautiful. Well, thank you all again. Really appreciate the lively and vibrant discussion today and all the energy you bring to the work that we do. I mean, the Ohio Riverway is a coalition, so thank you all for making us be a thing.
Yes, feel better, Brewster. We need your eyes.
Yes.
Thank you, guys. Good job.
Beautiful. Brewster, you won't let anything stop you, will you?
Well, hey, I may not be able to see, but I can hear talk, obviously.
When
Bye,
will
everyone.
See you.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
Wow.
Brewster, when will your vision come back?
Hopefully soon. I can't see a damn thing, but
wow.
And they say that readers, just get those cheap readers at Walgreens, and that doesn't do the trick for me. But I'm sure it'll all work out good. We'll see.
Yeah.
There's a U.S. Department of Transportation Protect program that is to create resilient waterways. And so I'm wondering if our next thing could be to go after Protect funding. You have to do it through your MPOs. But Richard Searcy's $2 million need, in theory, could be part of a Protect application, because he said he needs $2 million for